Let's talk to Clive Lambert. He is the director of FuturesTechs. Very good morning to you, Clive.
Good morning, Nick.
Right, we have 4 slides to go through. Let's kick off with the first one, the S&P 500, the daily chart, a nice smooth uptrend. Is this set to continue?
There's a little sign on the chart of that changing, to be honest. We saw a little bit of red last week, a little bit of selling off the highs, but all it did was got to a trend support line and bounced. And, you know, trend lines have been doing a nice job for this one of late. So that trend line where it bounced from last week to 29.15 on the futures as we start this week. Got another support there at 29.07.5 below that. And even if we broke those, 28.65 to 28.72 is a big area of support. So unless we start breaking some levels like that, then whatever the MACD says, because we've got, you know, if you look at the MACD, the momentum, you know, this longer term momentum study, upside momentum is a lot less keen, if you like, than it was prior to that big drop back in January, February. But we're not seeing that turning into anything yet. We're still making new highs and we're still holding support lines, and there's no point in battling these sort of moves.
Understood. Okay, let's move on to the E-mini Dow, the daily charts. Again, a trend line in place. Buyer for choice on the charts, right?
Absolutely, exactly the same story as the S&P chart that we've just looked at, really. We're making new highs. Whatever you think about this move, it's still going, you know, and I know that there's a lot of people maybe from a fundamentals and just you know, what's going on in the world point of view, scratch their heads when they see new highs in the you know, in the US equity markets all the time, being cheered on by a tweet from Mr. Trump. But that's you know, the charts are telling us. Don't battle against it. We're still making new highs. Again, we've got the MACD showing that bearish divergence, but nothing really to say to us yet that we need to change our view on this one. And 26.350 to 26.400 is your first key area of support. 26.100 is another level. In the futures that I'm looking at here, you know, and I wouldn't be batting against it unless we start to break some support levels, which we're just not.
Understood. Okay, let's move closer to home. Let's take a look at the DAX weekly charts. Some lower lows and some lower highs here, which is a top in place.
Yeah, well, you know, this is a different looking chart to the two we've just looked at. They were daily charts, and this is a weekly chart. But if you actually look, you know, we haven't made new highs for the DAX since that January. You know, since the high in January, just before that big sell-off, we did rally, and the highs in May and June made a lower high, and actually, so that weekly chart shaping up to be a head and shoulders top. Potentially, but we haven't got the sell signal on that yet. You know, a lot of the major highs in equity markets in Europe over the last you know, 20 or 30 years have looked a bit like this, but we haven't got the sell signal yet, and we've got some important support levels below that are holding. Fibonacci gave us 11,720. That was the low. Back in, you know, after, you know, that was the lows in sort of February, March. So it held, you know, behaved from a Fibonacci point of view, and that's still an important support level that it's holding. So a weaker looking chart, without a shadow of a doubt. And big down day on Friday, although we've got a chunk of that back today. But I think, you know, this is a very different looking chart, and I think that there's more down, you know, the bearish, it looks more bearish.
Understood. Okay, let's wrap up with the last slide, the FTSE 100, the weekly chart. Obviously, lots of political headlines over the weekend. What are the charts saying on this particular market?
Well, I don't know about you, Nick, but I look at that chart and just think it's a little bit of a mess, and we're not quite sure what's going on here. And I think that that's symptomatic of you know, of the UK at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I look at that chart, and actually the close, it's a weekly chart, and one of the closes from the middle of May 2017 was exactly the same as last week's close. So, you know, there's an argument to say there's a year and a half's worth of going absolutely nowhere.
Yeah.
It's just chopping around. It's not making. It's a messy looking chart. I don't like charts like this. But
well, the Japanese would say there's a time to buy, there's a time to sell, and there's a time to do nothing. And I know what I'd be doing on that chart.
Yeah, I mean, again, we've got the MACD telling us that this can head lower, but again, we're not really seeing anything really firm. The DAX looks a better looking chart if you're trying to short something. And the US markets, as we started off with, they're still going up, and that's the end of that. So,
Clive, on that note, thank you very much indeed. That's Clive Lambert from FuturesTechs.